Since my last video update of this radio, a lot has happened. A lot has happened. And you're going to see very quickly how much has happened, because a lot of it has happened. Alright, where we left off, I believe I had been applying the re-faux Pro reproduction faux finish kit. Where we're at right now is miles away. So, let's turn this puppy around and we're going to get a good look at it. As of this point in time, the cabinet is done. It is complete. There is nothing more that I plan on doing to the cabinet. There's one little thing I have to do before I can put the chassis in, start wiring in the speaker, and call it complete. And we're going to talk about that in a minute and why we're doing it that way. But let's take a look at the finished product. From the inside, you can see that I've mounted the grill cloth, and the grill cloth backer, obviously it's one unit. I have two labels that I need to reattach. This is the production run label that fell off when I got it. Luckily, I saved it. It's got the final inspection number and the run number. 1X, I think it's 1X is all it is. Part number 10233A. And I've got this Sears Silvertone label that was added later on in life. This is for the Sears Silvertone tubes that were bought and installed at some point in the radio's lifetime. You ready? Okay, so we're going to start off on the side. You can clearly see I've remounted the beautifully lacquered lower trim. I've filled in all the nail holes with black ebony Minwax wood putty. The only time I'll ever use wood putty, really. When I went to go remount these, I had a few difficulties. Number one, the nails that I bought were just a bit bigger than what came out. So I ended up drilling all the holes out, and I mean just a little bit bigger, so that way the nails would just glide right in place. I then took this nail setter and I just knocked them in a little bit further so that they're below the surface of the trim. Then I applied the wood filler. That's essentially how it was put together when it was new. The difference being they probably would have used a different kind of wood filler. And I think they may have finished the trim pieces after they were installed. So they would have probably used like a hardening filler. But as we move our way to the front, by the way, it's a little wonky. I gotta fix that. You can see that we've got the lower trim piece, same deal, filled in nail holes with ebony wood filler. Or putty, it's actually a wood putty. And as we work our way up, you can see the gloss start to pop. We've got our polished, restored escutcheon. The original glass, I was going to replace it, but you know what? The chips that are in the edges don't really show up, so I'm not worried about it. We've got our nice brand new gold grill cloth installed with the original speaker hardware. The speaker mounting screws each consist of one screw. It's a round-headed screw with a lock washer, a thick washer, and two nuts. And I have all the originals. What makes Philco unique is that they were one of the few manufacturers, if not the only one, that made all of their own hardware in-house. Screws, nuts, washers, you name it. So any opportunity I had to save any original mounting hardware, I took. This dial here is still mounted with the original short little wood screws that came with it when it was new. The grill cloth is almost identical to what came off of it originally. I was fortunate enough to have the original grill cloth to match it up to. The original cloth didn't have any designs. It was a very plain looking cloth, and I tried to clean it and preserve it, but I wasn't having any luck. It was just too badly faded. It was almost a grayish color. But based on some pictures of other Philco sets, I found that this is as close to the original as you're going to get. This is my second attempt at covering that grill backer board. The Philco decal is installed. This is what was holding me up in terms of finishing the face of the radio. I burned through 3 decals, and unfortunately that was all I had. The problem with the Philco decals, or the nameplates, name decals, whatever you want to call them, I'm calling them Philco decals. The problem with those is that they're actually printed on a very thin substrate. It's extremely difficult to work with and extremely fragile. It wrinkles without even, you don't even have to try and it wrinkles. Well, that didn't make sense. Anyway, the point being, they're a pain in the ass, and I hope to never have to do another one. But anyway, so I contacted vintageradiolabels.com, and I bought another set of Philco decals. It came with 4 big ones and 4 little ones. So I burned through 3 of the big ones. This is my 7th try, actually, when you think about it. But I got it on the last try. I got it perfect. Okay. Oh, and real quick, don't use microset on these. On these decals, do not use microset, because the microset almost immediately starts to dissolve, and it does its thing much faster on that thin substrate. So don't use microset on that. I used it after. Once I got it set in place, I then used the microset, and I then let it dry, and I finished it with clear lacquer. I learned that at work we actually have a spray booth, and I knew it was there. I just never thought about it. So on a nice dry day, I brought it to work, plopped it down in the spray booth, and I just went to town. I've got about 3 coats of lacquer on this baby. I wet sanded the sides before I did the final sanding, or the final clear coat application. So the sides were all wet sanded before the final applications, and that really helped to smoothen out and level the finish quite nicely. I used 800 grit sandpaper on that. I could have used 1000, but 800 was good enough for me. Now that we've taken a complete walk-around tour of the completed cabinet, we can now take a look at what needs to be done to the chassis. You're probably wondering, well, isn't it fully restored? It is, and Bob did a wonderful job on it. But there was one thing that I had a mild concern about, and I'm glad I looked into it. So there's one thing I need to take care of before I button this radio up. Fortunately, I caught it, but I'm just a little saddened that I have to do this, because I wanted to keep the original speaker cable, because it was original, and it was it looked like it was safe. John Bachman had shrink tubed it, and it passed under the radar when Bob took over the whole restoration. He thought it looked fine, and so did I. So I'm kind of sitting around the house one day, and I'm like, I kind of wonder what the true condition of this cable is. My curiosity caught the best of me, and I took out a seam ripper, and I took the insulation off, the sheathing, and I discovered some very bad news. That I'm glad I caught it. Very glad I caught it. But there's some insulation loss, and not only that, but there's a lot of wire strand damage on this cable, to the point where we're down to like 2 or 3 threads of wire, or strands of wire, in one of these wires. This is like a 20 gauge wire, and we're down to nothing on these. And we've got right here a potential for a dead short. And I don't know if this is a field coil pair or if it's something else, voice coil. But they're pretty damn close. And again, we have more strand loss here. It's just worn very thin. And then we've got a complete loss of insulation right here. And this is all very close together. So the odds of these two shorting out is pretty damn high. Because when John shrink tubed it, he didn't put anything in there to separate them. He didn't really do any of that. And I believe the reason he did it this way was because he just wanted to bench test the unit to really determine what else it all needed. And I don't believe that he intended to keep this on there. I think he was going to replace it, but it's just unfortunate that it has to be yanked out, because otherwise the cable is in beautiful condition and has the original bullet connectors on it, which thankfully are reusable. I can unsolder these and just reuse them. Won't be a problem, actually. They're just push pin connectors, but you can't buy these anywhere, to my knowledge, because nothing uses this type of connector anymore. Long story short, I found a company that sells a reproduction cloth sheathed wire, and I believe it's a rubber insulation or rubber jacketed wire that's had the this woven cotton applied to it or jacketed over it somehow. I don't know how it works. I don't know if they use like a braiding machine or a knitting machine or what. I don't know. I'm not a wire maker. But anyway, it's a good quality wire. It comes in a variety of colors, almost any color you can think of, and it's actually lacquered. So it'll look more like this black wire here, which is this is actually new old stock wire that I had sent to Bob, hoping it would help him with the restoration, and it did. He used it, but it's going to have like a shiny finish on it. And what that's going to do for us, it's going to maintain the original cloth wire appearance, but it's going to make this a much safer set to operate. In fact, Bob replaced a ton of wire underneath the set in the bottom of the chassis, and he used cloth reproduction or new old stock, whatever he had. I don't know exactly what he used, but some of it looks like new old stock to me. But he did a wonderful job with that. But he wanted to keep this as I did. I wanted to keep this original speaker cable, but unfortunately, it's just not safe anymore, and it's got to be redone. The other thing is the connections underneath are real easy to get to, and this type of chassis is notorious for being difficult to service. And as I'm sure Bob can attest, it definitely is one of the most challenging, because everything is kind of folded into a compact, chassis, and it's just crammed in there. But fortunately, all the connectors that I need to worry about are accessible from underneath. As a matter of fact, one of the sections that he shrink tubed, when Bob had done the wiring underneath, he just shrink tubed a few sections of the other end of this cable. That will all be cut out or desoldered and removed. And so it's actually going to look even nicer under there with all that shrink tubed wire removed. But anyway, so that's where I'm at right now. It's not a really difficult project. It's real easy. I'm just waiting for the UPS truck to show up with my wire. It should be here. It should be here sometime next week, I think. I think they would have used postal, so probably about 3 or 4 days. So I should have it by Monday or Tuesday. It's now going into Thursday. It's Wednesday going into Thursday. So that'll be done. This whole thing will be done, actually, probably before Halloween. I can't wait. It's going to be nice. One quick note. You'll notice that while there's cloth wiring all over this sucker, the mains cord is rubber. And you're probably wondering, well, what gives? According to Bob Anderson's research, this radio would have included a natural rubber power cord. In the 1930s, they were experimenting with natural rubber wiring. And what they quickly found out is that the natural rubber tended to degrade rapidly, and it just didn't hold up. A lot of the radios made during that time period have probably already been rewired because the rubber simply just didn't work. So it took a few years of development, but they finally got it right. and they got the formula good enough to where it would hold up for many years. But this is one of those sets that would have had a one of those rapid deterioration prone rubber power cords. You gotta be careful. I can't really put anything on this tuner because I could bend the fins. I should know better than that. I'm gonna actually put the tuner in a there we go, a less prone, a less vulnerable position. I'll put it that way. That way I can just gently put that right there. I'm working on getting a complete set of replacement tubes as spares, because I don't know, I don't know what the longevity of those tubes really is, and I do intend to use the radio. So before it gets impossible to find a set of tubes for it, I want to make sure I have some. And I found a few people online that are selling, like, they're trying to unload a ton of tubes. So I've sent them a list of what I need. I want one of each, just to keep it going. And who knows? I mean, maybe tubes will be around or available, new old stock or used, for years to come. It seems like everyone I know who knows anything about, who knows what vacuum tubes are, seems to think that you can't get parts for these. I laugh. I'm like, yeah, probably not. But the reality is, parts availability for these radios is never better. It's never been better. With the advent of online marketing and eBay and other trading sites, people that have been sitting on hordes and piles of tubes are now able to sell off what they've got and make it much easier for people to to buy and sell parts like vacuum tubes. And there's even and I didn't even know this, but there's actually companies that are manufacturing replacement bushings for these sets. You just wouldn't think that in 2015 that would be doable, but sure enough, it's doable. But what's getting scarce are the people who know how to work on these sets. They're getting harder and harder to come by because a lot of the older guys are dying off. I know personally knew two people that would have been able to build this set from scratch that have died, and they were older. One of them was 72, the other one was 86. And those are the guys that are dying off. And it's just sad that we're losing a lot of knowledge, and But luckily, there are people like Bob Anderson who knows how to maintain and care and feed for these sets. In fact, Bob rebuilt this sucker from scratch, so I'm grateful that he was available to do the job. But people like him are getting hard to find. Every year we lose a few, and eventually it'll be it won't be possible to restore something like this. So that's why I'm always for restoring stuff like this while it's still doable, while the parts are still available, and while the people are still around that know how they work. Well, I'm dragging on and on. I'm going to end this video, and I'm going to end it now. So the next video I make will be of the completed project. I might make a video on replacing the speaker cable, but that'll be a separate, I might just do that off, it won't be part of a series or anything. Or maybe it will. I'll keep you in suspense. But I'd like to make the next video I do of the completed set. All done, ready to rock and roll. Literally. Now, looking forward, this has actually opened the door for another video that I want to do. I'm going to actually buy a Ramsey AM transmitter. You can only buy them in kit form, to my knowledge. And I believe there's a legal reason for that, and I don't know how true it is. But they sell their products in kit form, so that you're not buying a finished product. You're not buying an AM transmitter that's ready to rock, because there's some laws against doing that. But there's no law against making one or something like that. you know, the source, you got to consider the source on that one. I don't know how true it is, but I'm going to be buying one of those. It's a do-it-yourself. Everything's mapped out. You just follow the instructions, and it's like paint by numbers. Assemble it, you know. And I've got AM radios all over the house I'd love to be able to broadcast to. I got this one. I got that GE that I recapped a couple years ago. I've got this beautiful transistorized Zenith Portable Royal 670 that I'd love to be able to broadcast to, and I could set up one of my computers upstairs as like a little private radio station, you know, an AM radio station of my very own. And I would have it playing, you know, streamed music 24/7, you know, just for the hell of it. Because why not? And I look forward to doing that. And I wanted to have it done before the end of this month. But sadly, that's just not going to happen right now. Got a lot going on, a lot of stuff at work. I'm very busy. So, anyway, all that and stuff. Stay tuned, and there will be more. Don't touch that dial.